Look fucking awesome.
Yeah,
Hey
buddy.
everybody, it is 8:30 Central Standard Time. I'm in Texas, Tom is in California, and we are doing a live call for everybody about how to get your spouse to support you in this business. Little background about me. I became a coach almost 2.5 years ago. August 15th is my 2.5 year anniversary. Tom is one of my childhood best friends, husbands. Melissa and I grew up together in California, and she became a coach. I think she was like the fourth coach I sponsored. And over the course of time, Tom and Ryan and I have become very close, and he is very monumental to her success. And I was going to share a bunch of stories from our whole team. First of all, one thing I want to talk about is I have seen nationwide from talking to people on my team, outside of my team, from my upline, that a lot of people are talking about how the biggest thing that holds them back is the fact that their family doesn't support them. So I wanted to talk about this. I've posted a lot about it, but I was going to kind of share some stories and, some suggestions I've seen from hearing from people whose spouses support them, how they got them to support them. Um, First of all, Ryan and I have no support from our family. We're pretty much estranged from our family. Ryan talks to his mom, but like she's never really acknowledged anything I've done. His whole family hates me, and my family hates me. But we have somehow managed to, basically build a solid team and a really good team together, husband and wife. And I've seen this develop um, over the course of being a coach from other couples and people on our team, and I found that the people who have their spouses support them are the most successful. And, you know, it's not something that's easy, so I'm just going to give a few tips of what I have seen and little things people have told me about how they got their spouses to support them. When I became a coach on February 15th, 2012, I was 13 days into my journey. Prior to that, I was just pretty much sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I was always sick. I felt fat. I felt nasty. I was really insecure with who I am, and I was just kind of hit rock bottom for probably the umpteenth million, 11th time, and I stumbled into my coach on Facebook, and I purchased the P90X Challenge Pack. I was almost 100% positive that I was going to return it. The only reason I bought it was because it came with a 30-day money-back guarantee. When I bought it, I didn't tell anybody I bought it. I almost bailed out a couple of times, and my coach followed up with me. And then finally I was like, shit, I just got to buy it because she's going to keep asking me. And it was my last ditch effort. I was like, I'm going to buy this, and it's probably not going to work. I'm going to return it, and then I'm going to say that I've basically throwing in the towel. I'm going to, save up and have a tummy tuck or something, because I was just disgusted with what my body was like after having 3 kids. I didn't tell Ryan. It had nothing to do with finances or asking permission, but I was just embarrassed because I really thought it wasn't going to work. And before this, we had a gym membership, but I never would work out in front of him. He was like, oh, let me help you. I'm like, no. And I was just terrified. I remember when I bought the challenge pack, I told my daughters, I'm like, I bought this, workout thing. I'm like, whatever you do, don't tell Ryan I bought it, because I just want to surprise them. And that was such utter bullshit. It came down to that. I didn't think I was going to finish it. I didn't want to work out in front of him. I didn't want him to know that I failed. And I remember when my daughter, who was about 11 years old at the time, took my before pictures, I was absolutely mortified. I mean, and looking back, I'm like, she was 11 years old. She wasn't going to judge me. But I had such low self-esteem. And when it came down to working out for probably the first 4 or 5 months, I would banish everybody from the room. Well, once I actually got through that first workout, I was like, well, that was tough. And but I actually did it. I mean, it was not pretty. I mean, it was just horrible. But I started posting about it on Facebook, and then, on day 13, I lost about a pant size. I didn't know how much I weighed. I didn't own a measuring tape. I was probably like a bunch of you out there who didn't think you'd finish and really didn't take it seriously. I'd never owned a scale because I'd always been this skinny fat girl who, never owned a scale. I just knew that I was not happy with myself, but never got hung up on the scale. So I don't even know how much I lost. I don't even know what my beginning weight was. I don't even know what my beginning measurements were. But I knew that I put on my pants on day 13, and I mean, I could pull them way far out. And I mean, I did what anybody else would do when something great happens. I post on Facebook, and like it just went like bonkers. And I started referring everybody to Becky, and that's when she basically offered up to me the coaching opportunity. And I gave her like a whole ration of shit about why I couldn't do it. And at the end, I realized that I couldn't tell her no anymore, and that she believed in me, even though I didn't believe in myself. And so I just jumped on it. I never even told Ryan that I was becoming a coach. All in all, after 2 weeks of being a coach, by the end of February, because I signed up on February 15th, I had earned enough money to basically pay for what I had invested $205 on my P90X challenge pack. I didn't want to spend the money because I just thought I'm not going to finish this. And like I said, it was just because I was going to get a 30-day money-back guarantee. And but then I did rationalize after I was trying to bail out of it, and it had to do with me, not the products, not my coach, was I didn't think I'd finish it. But then I was like, I'm spending like all this money, like, a pack of cigarettes a day, 2 packs of cigarettes probably on the weekend. And we were going through, at least an 18-pack a day drinking together, and well over a case. And so I was like, well, you weigh it out. What do I have to lose? You don't get any money back when you buy a case of beer and you don't have a good time. So I bought it, and, he came home because he was working 7 days at a time out of town working the oil field. And I had 3 kids at the time, a 10-year-old, a 7-year-old, or almost 7-year-old, and a 15-month-old. And he came back and he was like, so I see on Facebook that you bought P90X. And he's like, nobody ever finishes that, right? And I just sat there and I was like, and looking back, I realized that he was just trying to protect me. It had nothing to do with him not believing in me. He was just trying to not set myself up for failure. And then I looked at him, and I remembered right at that moment, I was at a crossroads. I'm like, I have 2 choices right now: just throw in the towel and let what he said detour me, or be like, I'm going to show you, motherfucker. So I was like, listen, I was like, this is just, I'm like, you're supposed to believe in me. And I got really defensive. I was like, you're supposed to support me. I was like, you're not even going to say I'm going to finish it? And he was like, no. I'm just saying that, a lot of people don't finish it. And, I did look retrospectively. I'd seen lots of people on Facebook basically start P90X, and after like day 4, if that, you never seen another word from it. And then I told him, like, I'm going to show you. And so at that point, I did the right thing. That I used his words, even though it wasn't meant to be hurtful, to motivate me instead of to bring me down. And I see this from everybody. People always tell me, like, my family, my friends, co-workers, all these people laugh at me. And it comes down to everything in life comes to 2 choices. For 30 years of my life, I basically let my parents, who just thought I was the biggest piece of shit, and still to this day, I have letters where they think that I'm a horrible person, and I allowed them to trample on my dreams and make me think less of myself. But then I thought, you know what? No, I was like, today's the day that I'm going to prove everybody wrong. And at the point when Ryan brought this up, I was like 10 days into P90X, and I remember, like, probably day 8, I posted on Facebook, I'm like, I'm not as fit as I hoped to be, but I'm not as bad as I thought I'd be. And I kept pushing, and people kept basically cheering me on, and they didn't even realize it. So all in all, he ended up at the where we are now, 2.5 years later. He's my biggest fan, and I'll tell everybody, he's a pain in the ass. He can be a douche just like anybody else's spouse, but he supports me. He's my biggest fan, and I had to realize that it had nothing to do with that he didn't love me or that he didn't care, he didn't want me to succeed. It was the fact that he just didn't want me to fail, and that's what people do. And I've talked about it before. If you're following me on Facebook, you'll see that I talk about it a lot. Everybody has haters. That means you stood up for something, and most people are jealous of people who've done things that they want and that they have not been able to find their own inner strength or realize what they're capable of. And it can be very detrimental to people when it's people that you love, your spouse, your family. But I want you to realize that most of the time it has nothing to do with that they really don't believe you. It just has everything to do with that either they're trying to protect you, or the fact that they just couldn't do it themselves, so they just cannot literally wrap their head around that somebody else can do it, or it's just a jealousy thing. So, one thing that I've said, again, if you follow me, you'll realize that my whole friendship circle has completely changed in 2.5 years. In the very beginning, it sucked, because all the people who I thought would be my biggest supporters, after seeing me struggle, seeing me hit rock bottom, seeing Ryan and I have major, marital problems, and I'm trying to readjust to having a child later in life after having older kids. I just thought these people would be happy for me, that I finally found something, and they didn't, and it sucked. It was, something that really bothered me. But again, it was like you come to a crossroads. Do you let these people who don't support you, when you're finally happy, be the ones who detour you, or do you say, you know what, I'm going to move on to better things because this is about me, not about them? Well, I chose to do what was best for me, and now I have, I had lots of people who, I lost along the way, and that's not my problem. It's obviously they weren't ready, and they obviously weren't true friends if they didn't support me. It didn't mean they had to jump on the same train that I was on, but it just meant that they should at least be supportive or still stay in contact with me because I don't push things down my throat. But I realize now that I have this huge circle of friends. Tom's one of them. Melissa and I, and like I said, we grew up together. She moved, I moved, we lost contact. We found each other in MySpace years ago. Then we found each other on Facebook. And I remember when she got pregnant with her oldest daughter, Mackenzie, and I remember when she posted her picture of her and Tom on their wedding day, and I was like, well, I'm happy for you. But I never really got to see what her life was really like. I remember whenever she was pregnant with Calliope, she was like, I think she's a little over 2 years old, and I think maybe 2.5. Kind of, we lose track of time when we're Beachbody coaches. But we were talking a lot, and I just had Rebel before that, and I've just found out recently that she was suffering from postpartum depression, and I never realized too that they were heavily in debt. And when she became a coach on April 20th of 2012, she was one of my first people that responded to one of my challenge group that I was talking about, like I'm starting a P90X challenge group. Well, she brought up to me, she's like, Tom and I own this, and I remember she talked about running. He got her into running, but she joined my challenge group. She didn't buy anything at the time. She was like, well, I already have P90X. Can I join your challenge group? And I said, sure. And we started talking, and then she finally bought Shakeology, and the first thing she said is like, I need to talk to my husband. I think if you're a coach, you've heard that elusive, let me talk to my spouse. And you're like, okay, whatever, that's a big excuse. Well, now I realize that they were heavily in debt, and he was working hard. She was struggling with postpartum depression, and she truly had to speak to her husband, because now I know that they are like perfectly fit for one another. And they made this decision, and I think that he was probably pretty leery because they both knew the debt they were in, and they just had a baby. She was kind of having to go back to work, and he basically said, listen, dear, whatever makes you happy. He didn't know me from Adam. And she, which I just found out probably about 4 or 5 months ago, she put Shakeology on her credit card that was almost maxed out. Little did any of us know that this would bring us close as friends, as couples, as, basically, we're not really coworkers, but, business associates, and that this would just change our whole entire life, and it would be the ends to everything we'd struggle with. Because as of now, a little over 2 years later, Melissa and Tom are no longer in debt. They live in California. Everybody knows it's super expensive to live, so I'm not saying anything's easy, but they're out of debt now. And we went on some amazing, amazing vacations together. And for me, I've cried about it. It brings tears to my eyes because Melissa's a good person. We grew up with, pretty tough childhoods on different ends of the spectrum, but she deserves happiness, and I had struggled with postpartum depression, and so to see her with this man that loves her, like, Tom is just an amazing person. I don't think that he believed 100% in Beachbody. I know that he said, I think this is a pyramid scheme. I know that whenever she made the adjustments to, do what I was doing, she was like, I'm going to, convert him into clean eating, and I was doing the same thing, and I was a couple of months ahead of her. When I became a coach, I was like, why am I going to do this? Because I had made the decision. I'm like, we're going to quit smoking, we're going to eat better, you're doing Shakeology, I want you to work out with me. And I remember he did one workout with me, Cardio X, and I was 5 weeks into P90X. It about killed him, and he's a super strong guy, but there's a difference between being a strong, active person and working out, and that's what people don't realize. He started drinking Shakeology, and that was enough for me. I pushed him and pushed him and pushed him and pushed him, and he didn't resent what I was doing so much, but he wasn't ready. And Melissa started doing the same thing with Tom, and I remember her saying, she's like, I'm just so frustrated because her and I made the decision, and we were very knee-deep into the Team Beachbody community, and she was like, Tom goes out to eat with all, his, CHP officers, because he's a California highway patrolman, and, he eats bad, and she's like, it's just him doing everything. And I was just like, give him some time. I'm like, do what you have to do and give him some time. I'm like, he's working out with you. It just takes a while. And because I'd already learned before, like, don't push anybody. Well, here we are 2 years later, or a little over 2 years after, they both started the journey. And I've watched them work together as a team. This is the first time that they're actually not doing a program together. He's doing Body Beast, but he's been by her side this whole time. They have done pretty much every program that they've completed together, and it's just amazing to watch them. And I've seen, when I realized whenever she was starting PIO and he was doing Body Beast, I wondered, I'm like, how difficult is this going to be? Because they had been workout partners. They're truly best friends. And, you know, I've seen Tom post about it very openly, and he's gotten his daughter Mackenzie into it, and it's been awesome to watch the pictures, and she's doing PIO. But, you know, I've seen him learn to meal plan on his own. And this is the thing that I tell everybody, is that this is about, just like your weight loss transformation, just like your own story, is that this is not something that's just going to happen overnight. It's just about progress and not perfection. And, you know, 2 years ago, if I had told Melissa, I'm like, just have faith. I did tell her this, have faith, he'll come around. She didn't believe me, and she was frustrated, but I was like, just back off him a little bit. Like, he's supporting you, and that is like the biggest thing in the world. And here we are now, like, he's doing his own program on his own. He understands cleaning, but then again, like, me and him are like the same way. We're like, beer, beer, beer. This is why we work out. Melissa's a lot more straight-laced and a lot more dedicated. But again, this is why, you know, we get along. But, you know, he's doing it on his own. He's been meal planning on his own, and I've watched them work together. That he's seen that this is what makes her happy. She's included him in everything, and this is one thing that I want to highlight above everything to every coach, is that involve your spouse. Like, don't go trying to get them to do a complete 360, because you may be months or even years ahead of them in where you are mentally and emotionally, and you know, maybe you've already completed programs. I mean, I realized that when I was like, hey, Ryan, let's do P90X together, and he was totally open to it. I was 5 weeks into P90X. I had built up my stamina. I had built up my strength and my endurance. I knew the program, and, you know, I basically set him up for failure. And especially if you're a woman, which Beachbody is dominated by women, you know, if you're pretty far into your journey and you're trying to get your husband to do Insanity or P90X or even a program where you're a couple weeks into it, and they haven't built themselves up, you know, by going through each block or each phase of the program, you're basically setting them for failure. And when it comes to men, the last thing they want to do is look weaker than a woman. So I just want to encourage you is to start slow, and don't force anybody to do something that they may not be ready, because this is where we all make mistakes. We want our family, we want our spouse, we want our best friends, we want the people that we love the most to number one, support us, encourage us in what we're doing, and to join us. And we've made this our own mind up, but we don't treat them with the delicacy that we do with challengers, because I've seen a lot of coaches who are so patient. They take the time to explain stuff. They wait around for all these people to come around, make the decision on their own. They form them. They, you know, help them slowly make each step. And whenever they slip up, they're so patient. And then whenever their family does it, they're basically like screaming at them and yelling at them and expecting so much from them. And so I just urge you is to take a step back and see how you've talked to your spouse or your family members, to see if you're pushing them and not treating them with the same honor and the respect that you treat your challengers, because that can be frustrating when you're a spouse that, you know, you see whoever your spouse is who's a coach spending hours on the phone or checking into their challenge groups and, you know, talking about all these people who are like, oh, they're really struggling and I'm helping them, and here you are berating them and expecting and demanding so much. And so I really expect, you know, really want you to take a step back and look at this. You know, I've heard so many people who, one of my friends had said, you know, my spouse hates working out. I truly don't believe that their spouse hates working out or exercise. They just resent what their spouse is doing because it takes away from their time. I know that there's times, you know, in the past when Ryan got heavily into hunting or fishing, and he was gone from the house a lot. And it's not that I didn't want him to have a hobby. It's not that I didn't want him to enjoy himself. It's not that I didn't think that he didn't deserve to go do something on his own with friends. But when it got to the point where it was taking away from our family time, and I felt like I took the back seat or was less important, then you resent those things. So I just, you know, want you to take a look at how your spouse is reacting to Beachbody. If you're one of those coaches that just goes in and says, like, oh, you know, Mindy, who's, you know, my upline, or Mindy, who's my friend, or Mindy, who's a coach that I really look up to, is like, you know, hosting this webinar, and, you know, and then you go in and close the door, and it's, you know, 8:30 at night. It could be 6:30 in California, and you close the door and you basically neglect your family. Maybe your wife or your husband has been asking you to take out the trash, fix something around the house, and you haven't done it, and you go in here. And I get that you are trying to provide a better life by pursuing this opportunity, but if your family doesn't know the opportunity that lies ahead, if they don't know what you're doing, then they just see us as a fitness cult and somebody who's robbing time away from their family. So look at how you have presented yourself. Look at how you've operated. Look at how your schedule's going and realize, are you neglecting them? Are you not sharing something with them? We had a big team dinner last Sunday night with our local coaches. Unfortunately, Tom and Melissa aren't local, so they couldn't be here. But I was speaking to a lot of the coaches on my team while the rest of the people on the team were mingling, our families, our spouses, and our kids. And we were kind of talking about this because I said, I have this call coming up. And one of the coaches, who is one of my coaches that I sponsored, she was like, my husband said the other day, she's like, you're always on your phone. And she's like, and then I sat him down and I told him, my coach left her job after 21 months and she gets to work from home and she gets, a little bit of a financial freedom and gets to do all this. And I'm working with the same thing, baby, for us. And, you work so hard because her husband works very hard. And this is why I'm on my phone. I'm not playing on my phone. I'm not, doing anything wrong. And then he was like, oh, okay. So my thing is like, don't assume, because nobody likes as coaches when people assume what coaches do or assume that, different things. So don't assume that your spouse knows. Don't assume that they're listening, because sometimes if they feel like they're taking a backseat in this, they may just completely tune out anything you're saying. So include them. I remember when I was really working hard, whenever I finally wrapped my head around that, like, I can do this full time, there was the Disney World trip, and I sat down my whole family and I said, listen, I've wanted to go to Disney World my whole entire life, and my parents always said I can't afford it. And I said, if I work really hard, family, I'm like, I can take you here. I was like, I get to fulfill my dream, and you never have to ask me for this. I'm like, so this is what we need to do. I'm like, Mom's going to work really hard. I need your help. I need you to understand. And they're like, oh, okay. And they worked on it. My girls talked to a bunch of friends. They actually sold 2 Shakeology home directs to people because they were talking about it. The same thing happened when I said, listen, I'm working towards going full time. And I told my kids, I'm like, you'll never have to ride the bus again. I'll be able to come to all of your field trips if you want me to come. I'll be able to come to all your, school assemblies and, different things that you have, field days. I'll be able to pick you up. I mean, I could pick you up. We can go on play dates with our friends. You don't have to sit at home alone when you're sick. You don't have to sit at home alone on, Christmas break and spring break and all this, and summer break. I get to be that mom that gets to take you somewhere, the mom that people envy. And they were like, oh, and I was like, but listen, I'm like, this doesn't happen overnight. I'm gonna have to work really hard. So when I'm working late, when I'm doing calls, just like tonight, I'm like, I'm doing this for you. And they said, oh, okay, but I took the time to include them and realize that I was doing this for them. I wasn't doing it because they weren't important. And I've seen that, if you neglect your family, they don't cooperate. It hurts them. And so every day my kids would come home, when I was working really hard, they're like, Mom, we ride the bus home. We don't have to ride the bus home anymore. We can do this, and we can do this, and this, and this. And they were visualizing it so that they never resented what I was doing. My husband never resented it. And it made them more open to the whole situation. I included Ryan on every trip, and it was the first trip that we went on that was a Beachbody corporate event, was the Disney World trip, and that's where he met my coach's sister and her brother-in-law, because we'd already met my coach and her husband, and we connected. And he saw that these people were just like us. We partied hard, and I mean that's where we fit in. We fit in big time. You say beer, you say alcohol, you say party. We're there, and our kids connected, and they realized that was we're a family. And as the time went on, like Ryan said, which kind of inspired me to do a team dinner last Sunday night, was that, he wants to have the same relationship that we have with our coach and, her husband, her family, because even last night, 12 o'clock our time, my coach and, her husband were texting us like, hey, we're out for, it was my coach's husband's birthday, and this is the way it is. I've seen that Tom and Ryan team up. Sam, who is one of my personally sponsored coaches, she got her husband to go with her on the trip to Cozumel? Yeah, Cozumel and Grand Cayman this March, and then that's where he met Tom, and he already knew Ryan and I, but I've seen something completely open up there too, is that he supported her whenever he'd seen how it had made her change as a person, and whenever he lost his job and he found a new job up in Dallas, he actually went on after the cruise and he did research about Summit. He found out that, there's a P90X certification there, and that he told Sam, he was like, listen, Sam, they're doing a 2-day, certification for P90X. Why don't you do this? Quit your job. We'll all relocate to Dallas, because he was up there on his own. I found flights, and I truly believe that him coming there, really seeing what we're like, because he met like our friend Joe Riley, that and they hung out in the casino together with Tom and Ryan. They played poker tournaments. He realized that we're normal people and that nobody judged him. We had many dinners together. I knew he realized for once that he'd seen what it did to his wife and his family, and that he knew that this was where they needed to be, and basically connecting with us helped. And he basically gave her blessing, like, quit your job. He did the research, and it was a big thing to her that she's like, he never really plans anything, and he sat here and he went through all this work. He did his research and helped. And, we went on this trip, and we just had a blast. Like, we took mopeds together. It really wasn't even Beachbody related. I mean, there's pictures of us on Facebook. I mean, there was like this whole fiasco. There's a whole fiasco about how one of the mopeds broke down, and there's a picture of Tom and Trey on a moped. We just had a great time, and right then and there, I got to see, and that just connected me to my team even more. I saw how much Trey loved Sam. I knew Sam loved him. Never doubted their relationship, but I got to see it firsthand. And like I said, it brings tears to my eyes, because I see that Tom is a good man, and he's everything Melissa deserves, and he's an awesome father. They came to Tahoe with us right before the cruise when we went on a road trip, and it's just really awesome to connect on this level. I've seen how I had 2 coaches, Melissa Galmay and Alina Campbell. If you look at my blog that I posted in the event invite, they were thinking about becoming a coach for about a year. They both signed up in February, but the biggest thing was their husband said the same thing that Tom did. I think it's a pyramid scheme. Like, I just respected their husband. I always tell people, respect and honor your marriage, but they sat and watched me, and they watched me grow. They watched me quit my job. They watched me just become a happier person. They watched me be able to have the freedom. They watched me be able to go on trips. And finally, they just sat their spouse down and said, I've watched this. She's a normal person. She's a person with lots of problems and really bad past, and she's doing this. And finally, their husband said, okay, we can do this. And once their husbands blessed them, and once they got their husbands on board, and they said, you don't have to work the business, but I just want you to see what is available. So when they were going through the Coach Training Academy, when they were watching my videos, when they got off calls with me, they explained to their husbands what they're doing. And this is what I think seems to be the biggest problem with spouses, that the spouses don't communicate. They don't share with their spouses what they're doing. They don't share what the opportunity is. All they do is just basically shut the door and don't explain anything, and they just say, I'm getting on a call, leave me alone. When people are knocking the door, they're screaming at them, get out. And all the spouse sees is that they're neglected, and that they are left out, and that they don't know what's going on. And it's scary for anybody. When there's change, people are always afraid of getting left behind. And if you are sitting there barking orders, you have to drink Shakeology, you have to eat clean, you have to work out, you have to do this, you have to work your business, most people are like, oh my God, I don't want to do that. And so then they just put up this wall, they put up this front, they put up this, put on the brakes. And if you're not a tough as nails, I'm going to show you, and I'm going to prove you wrong type of person like me, a lot of times it can basically scare people, and then they'll just quit. So I want you to go back and look at the history from the time you became a coach and see how you approached it, and maybe go back and apologize to your spouse that you realized that you were not communicating with them, and you were pushing them to do something that they weren't ready, and explain to them why you're doing this. You probably shared with your team, you probably shared with your coach, you probably shared on Facebook what your why is. And most of the time your why has to do with your family. But if you don't tell your family, then it doesn't do any good. If you neglect your family and you treat them like crap the whole way, and you neglect them, that say you reach your dream, you become 15-star diamond, you're making 6 figures, and you're one of the top 1% of the out of all the coach organization, what good is it going to be if your family hates you, if your family feels like second best? So go back and look at this. I have a customer that just became a coach, and she really wanted to become a coach. She kind of brought it up, and her husband was not really cool about Shakeology. He thought it was a waste of money. Cool with working out, and finally she kind of talked him into it, and she was pretty slick. So I don't know if this is going to work for you. I'm going to give you this little plug-in. She'd be working out, and he wouldn't work out because he was like me. He wouldn't work out in front of anybody. He would work out on his own. But I think a lot of us, when we're tired after working out, we're just like, hit pause, we're done. You lay on the floor and you're like panting and dying. But she would keep it going on. She'd go about her business. She'd be doing around the house, and it would be, Tony Horton. It would be even like Christina Delgado, who is my coach's sister. She's on some of the videos at the end about Shakeology. She'd leave it rolling and rolling and playing. She's pretty slick. And he'd be like, oh, okay. And so he started asking questions about Shakeology. She started telling him about it. And so she ordered Shakeology on a one-time order. She signed up as a club membership, and then we started talking about it. And then right around the same time, I had convinced Ryan after we came back from Summit, I'm like, why don't we do a 3-day refresh together? So me, him, and Joe Riley, who he'd met and become really good friends with on the cruise ship, and then Chris Duffield, who's one of my really good friends who lives in Austin, who's not even on my team, we all decided to do the 3-day refresh together. Ryan said this was the one program that he knew he could do without fail. Because it was 3 days, and he had awesome results, and he allowed me to share him, even though it was out of his comfort zone, and people started asking questions, people started friending him, and then more and more men and more people who lived in our community or people we knew, started coming around, because it was like, oh, hey, we've been following you for 2 years, and we know Ryan likes to booze it up, we know Ryan doesn't like to work out, and we know Ryan drinks Shakeology, but people started taking us seriously. And right around then, my personally sponsored coach's husband was like, okay, I think I want to do this after Ryan did it. So the thing is, I had learned to back off with Ryan, and I just accepted that he was drinking Shakeology. He would go to events with me because, one thing that, like he always said, he always went to events, not because he was necessarily going to apply it, not because he was going to work the business, but because he knew what this did for our relationship. He knew what this did for me as a person. He knows what this has done for us financially. He knows the people that this has brought into his life and that has made our life significantly better. And he just didn't want this to drive a wedge in us. He wanted to know what we were talking about, and this was big. So this is what got basically hand in hand my personally sponsored coach letting stuff roll, letting her husband basically see what it was, so she was embarking, stuff down his, like drilling it into him, and then, basically getting my husband, after kind of laying off a little bit, to come around. Both went hand in hand. So, the same thing is, like, I just ask you to look back on what you're doing, try a different tactic, because then I understand how important it is for you. If you're working so hard for your family, like 10 minutes, if you're working hard for your family, it's that you explain to them this is for them. If you don't tell them this doesn't do any good. One thing that I want to discuss that's really big is I watched the top 10 coaches when they were recognized on stage at Summit, and they thank their teams. I know who all of them are, and I know that it's 100% evident that they worked hard. I've stayed in the top 1% over the last 2 years of being a coach, and this just didn't happen overnight. This wasn't luck like people say, oh, you're so lucky. This is something that I worked hard for. I don't have an off switch. I care about my people. I have the support from my family. I love what I do. I wake up thinking about it. I dream about it. I go to bed thinking about it. But, and it obviously helps having a working team, but they all thank their spouses. So I want you to know that, not that you necessarily have to have your spouses 100% support, but it really definitely makes a big deal. Like, it makes it happen. And like I said, the top 10 coaches all thank their spouses for it. And if you don't include them, this can really hinder your business. So I want to turn it over to Tom. I want to wrap it up because it is Sunday night, and I don't want to take everybody's time. And then, Ryan, he really is not cool about talking on, camera, but he's willing to do it because he does know how much it's helped us. So I want to turn it over to Tom. This is, not a scripted call, but I want him to discuss what made him make the decision, because him and Melissa work very well together. Melissa's a very structured person. She does all of her research. Tom's like me, loosey-goosey. We like to have fun. He goes in, talks to people, and he's like, here, have Melissa hand it off. And they both build a relationship with people together, and they make an excellent team. And without each other, I don't think they'd be where they were. And they are each other's biggest fan. I've worked out with them together, and Melissa's like, we got to get it done. And Tom is like, he cheers her on. He cheered me on. And it's been a hard road for Melissa because she was really at a bad point. She was overweight. She wasn't happy with herself. And they worked together, and they slowly worked, out, a lot of the kinks, and they make a good team. And I'm just really blessed to have him in my life because I love him to death, and my husband loves him to death, and we send silly gifts to each other back and forth, and it's just amazing. So I'm going to turn it over to Tom. You there?
Yep. Hi. All right, so trying to figure out like what to say and where to go with this, like why we decided to do it. Before we had our first kid, I worked out, not a problem. I could work out all day long. I go play baseball, but I never put nutrition in. I still don't put the nutrition in that I need to because I like to eat burgers and beer. But after our first kid, Melissa and I both gained a lot of weight, but Melissa bounced back personality-wise. That was easy enough and evident enough. She went back into the workforce, and she started talking to people, and she bounced back pretty quickly with personality. After our second kid, things went south fast. Like I had never seen my wife depressed. She didn't want to go out. She didn't want to do things, and not just fun things. I'm talking about intimate things. I mean, my wife wouldn't. It was different. It wasn't that our marriage was bad or anything else like that, but my wife got sad very fast. And when she started seeing a doctor, I knew something was really wrong because that wasn't my wife. Had no clue who Mindy was. We owned P90X. We bought it. We're like, whatever, we'll buy it. We lived in an apartment that was not much bigger than the room we're in now. And we bought this program, and we did it for 6 weeks. Went on our cruise, and we're like, well, whatever. We're good. We don't need to work out anymore. We don't need to eat healthy. We'll sit in our little apartment and drink more beer. Well, then when we had the second baby, Melissa went sad. We still own P90X. She got introduced to, or I got introduced to Mindy. And I'm like, who the hell is this crazy chick in this pyramid scheme? What kind of grape Kool-Aid does she already have you drinking? But the difference was it was the first time I'd seen my wife happy in, I don't know, 4 or 5 months. Like she just wasn't happy, and my wife had a smile. So what did I do? I'm like, let's throw money at it. Sure, why not? We'll drink the grape Kool-Aid because it's a pyramid scheme, huh? Like you just keep putting people underneath you, and of course you're going to make more money. Put more people underneath you. It's all good. But we tried this Shakeology, and I won't lie, the first time we drank it, I can't remember what flavor we got, but
Greenberry.
Yeah, all right. It was nasty. Like I was like, what, healthy? No, this ain't a greasy burger. What are you talking about? But all right, it's healthy. I don't eat my vegetables. I don't eat fruits. Like a banana is my excitement for fruit. I'm like, woohoo! Or strawberries, and I'll eat a ton of strawberries. But I didn't eat healthy. Melissa, before either one of our kids, had already worked at a weight management clinic, so we kind of understood how nutrition worked and why it worked. So I was like, all right, we'll try it. We'll try the Shakeology. Well, it didn't take much more than 5 or 6 days to realize that, well, greenberry is not my favorite flavor. This stuff did a lot for us, and my wife was, it was like a week or two. You could see that she was much happier already. She never believed me when I said working out is key to looking the way you want to, and I never believed her when she said, well, if you would eat right, you'd look the way you wanted to. Bullshit. A burger makes you look and feel the way you want to feel. But seeing her be happy was the key to it all. Like, that's why I married her. She was happy the day I met her, and she'd been happy for 4 years prior to the second baby. And so seeing her happy was what made it easy to support her. I still, even a year into it, was still, this is a pyramid scheme. It is. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, honey. It's a pyramid scheme. I don't know how long it was. It wasn't super long after that. We met Mindy and Ryan for the first time, and that was the first time I started making friends that were quality friends. I don't know how you, Mindy kind of hit on it earlier, like the friends that you thought were going to support you through things and do things that you wanted to do and be where you wanted to be. Well, I surrounded myself with lots of friends that just wanted to party, that didn't want to put the time into exercise and eat right and support each other. Beachbody's been all of that, and they've supported my wife into probably one of the happiest places she's ever been. It makes coming home fun. It makes working out together, getting our kids involved in exercising. I mean, right now my kid is stuck with the, all right, Daddy, I don't want to bury my nose in electronics, and she wants to work out, and she comes out and she rides her scooter. She doesn't always work out. She's got her little half-pound weights. But she comes out there, she'll come in and tell me her happy story about being with Mom and doing PIO. She'll come in and do some weird-ass PIO move, crazy, weird push-ups, but it's fun. I mean, I'm happy to have those kind of stories, other than my kid going, well, Mom, Dad, I just made it to this level on this game or that. My wife creates memories out in our garage. Like, isn't that pretty sure that's where the dad and the boy is supposed to make stories and memories, and somehow that my wife and daughter come in and they have the most fun out there. I don't know. I mean, I can't say enough about supporting. My wife has supported me through everything. I've moved her to 4 different towns, 5 different towns. We've lived in 10 or 12 different houses, and all of my choice. Hey, honey, I'm moving back to Nevada. I knew my wife 6 months. My girlfriend, I mean, I met her at a bar drunk one night, and hey, we're moving to Nevada. I'm moving to Nevada. Would love it if you'd come with me. She has picked up and moved every single time with me. So she supported me in everything I've done, so it would be dumb to not support her in everything she does. Pretty easy and pretty much a no-brainer for me. I don't talk a lot. I do when I'm half-crocked, but yeah, no.
It's been amazing to watch you guys. Like you said, you didn't remember when you met us. You guys came here to stay at our home.
In September, yeah.
They had a cross-country trip planned. They talked about it for a really long time, and because of the fact that Melissa was faced of having to go back to work full-time after having Calliope, and she knew that she didn't want to. California is very expensive. Daycare is expensive, and had she went back to work, she knew that she'd be putting her children in the arms of somebody else and paying a lot of money and not bringing home a lot of money, and it was kind of scary. And you know, one thing that she shared today is that I didn't know this, that she looked into working from home and never saw anything that really made any sense. There was a lot of these things where you'd have to, you know, spend lots of money to get inventory, to basically be a representative for a company, and then you had to spend a lot of your time going into people's homes to do shows, delivering orders. And with Tom, he's a CHP, his schedule is very crazy, and you know, was not doable when they lived somewhere far from family and they had no family help. So this has been an end to a lot of worries that they had, because number one, they have no debt. Number two, she never had to return to the workforce. And I know that her ultimate goal is to, you know, Tom works very hard. He had to work lots of overtime. He had to take a lot of side jobs because he's a damn good man. He loves his family. His daughters are his whole world. And if you've ever watched them together as a family, you'll know that this is not something that Melissa just says on Facebook. This is, you know, 100% truth, and that's why I love him, because he's the perfect match for my friend, and he is a good person, and he's a good cop. He is a good friend, good everything. But you know, she wants to alleviate a lot of the stress from him because she does appreciate him, and they decided to go on this road trip. They talked about it for a long time, and Melissa's very logistic, and she had everything mapped out about where they're going to go, and she rerouted everything, which I know threw everything in a tailspin, but they accommodated so they could come here. They had every fiasco in the world. They had truck problems that kind of came out of the clear blue. He got pickpocketed, I think, in Illinois or something, but they came here, and they ended up staying 2 days. It gave, you know, me a chance to really get to know him, gave our kids a chance to get together, and that's where we really clicked. And I'm not saying they wouldn't have, but, you know, I think that made it a little bit easier for Tom to come to Summit for the first year when we went for the first year in 2013, because he already knew somebody, because it's very scary going to an event where you don't know anything about what's really going to happen. You don't know anybody. But that gave us a chance, and every trip we go on together, we get a little bit closer. And, I mean, we're all going to Miami for our leadership little vacation for our team, and you know, we're all going, and we're planning on going early to hang out, and you know, this is just a big deal. So I encourage everybody to share with your family who your coach is, what your coach does, because I know that lots of people who are on my team, they share videos of Rebel and of us and what we're doing with their children and with their, spouse, because, they're connected, and, people want to be near us, and people know Rebel. People have watched them grow up, and I've watched Melissa's kids grow up. I mean, I've spent some time with them, but, they're, 2,000 miles away, and I get to see that. So, do the same thing, because I'm pretty sure if you're watching this and you have a coach, your coach is really monumental to your life. They probably saved your life, changed your life, and you love them. But, your family needs to know who they are. Your family needs to see how important they are, and your family needs to see what a positive influence this is. So that's all I have to say. Ryan's in, and I want to just kind of have him to say a few things about his observations, his relationship with some of the spouses, and, maybe something out there that some of you can share with your spouses, because sometimes it's nice to have the spouse's point of view, because when you're the actual coach, when you've already made the decision, when you went to Super Saturdays, when you went to corporate events, when you have seen people in the community, you just get it. Like, it's so easy to just get it, and we do this even when we're dealing with our challengers. We just get it. We're like, why aren't you ready to do this now? We know, how great this is. Why can't you get it? And like I said, you have to go about it with some delicacy with your family, but sit down, share with them some videos, this webinar, share with them videos from Super Saturday, share them, videos about some of the coaches that inspire you, share with them stuff about why you're excited for your challengers, what you've done for them, because a lot of people outside of our organization and even spouses don't really realize how monumental we are to people's lives and what we do. They just think like, oh God, it's a pyramid scheme. You're like selling shit, and like you make bonuses, and you have this like team, and then you're like on these like stupid calls. But they don't realize that you're out here building relationships, and that's why Ryan and I've done well, is because he, he's not really good with names or faces, but like I will talk to him about like, I'm like, person on my team, they just signed a coach, and I have to refresh his memory, but like I keep him involved, and I let him know that these people are doing great things, and they're doing what I'm doing, and he's already seeing what this can do for their life. So anyways, here's Ryan. Scoot over.
You actually got to be on the camera, Shorty.
There's Tom. You know Tom.
Yeah.
So when I bought P90X, what did you think?
I laughed at you.
Yeah, he laughed at me.
I did, and I regret it, but actually that's what inspired her to do what she's doing now. First thing I told her was, nobody ever finishes it. I thought about buying it, but I was like, I ain't going to do it. I'm lazy. I'm going to admit, or not going to deny that. Go suck them.
Okay.
Anyway, I guess the only thing, obviously not scripted, been at the lake drinking all day. Anyhow, yeah, Tom, you wish you were here. Anyhow,
I do.
I guess watching, whenever the husbands, and I've never understood why the husband, or even wives in some cases, they don't support, the other one. I don't understand it, because first off, that's your spouse. You should, regardless of how dumb you think it is, you should support them. And I've watched over the last 2 years that everybody that does it, is successful, that is going somewhere in the business and is passionate about it, they have 100%, from the other person, behind them. And, I always knew Mindy had something that she could, do anything she wanted. She didn't believe it, and this finally opened her up to where she gets it. And then, it's funny, we hang out here in town, and people don't realize how monumental she is. And, whenever we go to a Beachbody event, people stand in a line to take a picture with her. And so, she's done great things, and I do believe anybody can do it. What are your questions? Because I really don't have any clue what to do.
What made you start supporting me? Because you thought it was stupid in the beginning. You didn't get it. You didn't think I'd finish P90X, and I didn't think I would either. But like, what made you? Was it meeting Tom? Was it going to
I didn't want to get yelled at.
Huh?
I didn't want to get yelled at.
You want to get yelled at?
Yeah. No. No, I mean, within 2 weeks, the results, and then I started, telling, people where I was working at what you were doing, and, I was proud of you, and it's really hard to be away from you at that point. I was like, I look at pictures now. We really need to change pictures in our house, but I was like looking at pictures, and I thought, this is the hottest girl I know, even then, and now I look back, I was like, oh wow, she's pretty fluffy. And she didn't take good pictures. She does now. She would never get in a picture. Now,
I'm in every picture. I'm like the selfie queen.
Yeah. So, but I actually thought about this for a while, and I was trying to come up, what was I going to talk about tonight? And it all left me. What are your other questions?
That's it. You're just here. People like to see you.
That's what happens when you're on a bikini and a goddamn patio boat.
Oh, Frank, dude. Yeah, I gotta get the stripper.
See, like,
pole
we're
down.
normal people. We just came in from the lake. I'm just showered because I had lake water. I've been drinking beer all day. We were with another
Totally sober.
couple out in the lake today talking about Beachbody stuff, jumping off our pontoon boat. Tom and Melissa were eating a cheat meal with lots of, me and Tom were talking about burgers before we got in here, all the crazy burgers he had. Tom and I, we like to drink. We're the party people. Melissa's the one who goes to bed early. Ryan likes to stay up and gamble with Trey. But, we're normal people. And
It comes out every once in a while.
Yeah. If you don't bring your spouse around, they don't realize that we're crazy people. I've told everybody, get on the waiting list for Nashville, because unfortunately a lot of these coaches will fizzle out. A lot of these coaches won't have sitters. A lot of these coaches won't be able to afford flights or know how to get there because they don't have GPS or whatever happens. But get on the list, because people are like, well, what are my husband's going to do? I'm like, they're going to hit the bar with Tom and Melissa and Larry and Danny and all the cool husbands while all of us go, and then they'll get to hear all of us over, dinner talking about what we learned at the workshops. But bring your spouses. They don't have to sit through that stuff. He told me that's annoying because they said, shh.
That is one thing about Beachbody. I have made some really good friends, and I have friends that I've been, we've been close, grew up together, done pretty much anything you think of together. But I have better friends now that were complete strangers 2 years ago through Beachbody, and I can't think of anything else that come up with where you're going to meet cool people that are like you. There's a lot of us like me and my wife, but they don't exactly show it like we do. But I've met really good people, and we have a good time, and we go out of our way to go and hang out and be with them people, because it's better than any of the friends I've had all my life that I can tell you anything about, but they're not. It's different. And I've been looking for. I met Tom and Melissa through. She knew Melissa, but got to know Tom. Partied, drank, but You
didn't ride a moped together, though.
No, we did not ride.
You don't have that bond like you and Homer.
I'm a little upset.
Yeah, if you call him Trey one more time, his name is Homer.
Trey.
Homer. Yeah, Homer. Fucked on that day.
Well, it all comes down to bring your spouse around to see what we're all like. So many people don't go to Super Saturday. So many people don't go to Summit because they're afraid of being judged. Our family judges. I said in the beginning of this call, we have no support. Ryan talks to his mom, that's it. She's never acknowledged anything I do. None of her family does. My parents think I'm the biggest piece of shit. But we have people who love us for who we are. I'm wearing a Be Fucking Awesome shirt. He's wearing an I Love Coitus shirt. We wore it. I Adam Coitus. We wore it all over, Vegas at Summit. Nobody said anything. They truly love us. We're uncensored. I am unlike any coach in the organization. But people still care about me. And for the first time, I realized that you can be yourself and people still like you. That doesn't happen nowadays.
I'm going to be
kids.
Bye.
That's all I have to say. We're almost at an hour, and I do try to keep it down an hour. I can talk a lot.
Shut up.
That's why I do calls all the time. But I hope that something I said makes you just take a step back and look at how you have approached this. And if you don't have support from your family, I'm really sorry. I know it sucks. Big hugs to you. But you have us as a family, and I know it's not the same, but don't let these people discourage you. Don't let them stray you from your journey you're on. Don't let them stop you from, continuing on your path of being a coach, because there's so many people out there who need you, and there's so many people out there who are watching you, and when their time is ready to pull the trigger and jump, they will, and I just hope that you're still there for them, and that you just didn't let one person who didn't believe you detour you from your, path that you're on, because I'm so proud of you. So if you're watching this, just stay the course and know that we all love you, and come to events. And if you see Tom and I at Summit, give some high fives, give Melissa hugs, give Ryan hugs for supporting us. And when you see somebody on your team who has a supportive spouse, maybe ask them what they did to get their spouse to support them, because maybe that will give you a little insight on how you can get your family more engaged. And sometimes you just have to accept that your family may suck when it comes to support department, and you just have to roll on and realize that you have 200,000 other coaches out here who love you and support you. So with that, I hope you have a good evening. I hope you have a great Monday. And if you have to go to work tomorrow, just use that as motivation that one day you will be a stay-at-home coach, and you will not ever have to show up on a Monday and dread Mondays anymore. So peace.